First Wednesday of September can only mean one thing. It's time to party like patchwork people know how to do. That's right, everybody. Join me for the cool instructions on how to do block number 9 from Patchwork Party by Leila. Let's get started. And welcome back, everybody, to Making It Fun. I am your host, Rob Appell from Michael Miller Fabrics, and I'm super excited to see all of you out there. You've been doing a great job if you've been following along with our awesome patchwork party, our block of the month we started at the beginning of this year. So yeah, the first Wednesday of each month, we're doing an installment. This month, we're on block number 9. And if you're just now getting here to the party, you're casually late, that's okay, because we have all of the information you need. The links are down in the description below. You can certainly follow along, get started at any time. There are even kits available at some of your local quilt shops, so make sure you're always checking in with your local retailers, helping support their businesses, and pattern designers like Leila, who was so kind to let me take this pattern and help teach it on a monthly basis. Now, we do need you to have the pattern with you available, because that's part of it. We're supporting Leila and her business, so that's where you're going to get the mathematics. We're just going to omit those numbers today to help protect that pattern. But like I said, you can find it very easily in your local quilt shops, or you can get it off of her website or whatnot. But I am dying to get started. 2 cups of coffee in me already, and it's early in the morning. Fresh out of the shower, as you can see, but I'm dying to teach you all how to do this. So like I said, let's dive right in with our supplies. Now, every block so far is basically used from the same color family. Like today, we're using our light blues, some of our cotton couture, and some fairy frost. And the supply information is obviously there with your pattern as well. Your background color is the white cotton couture, and this cotton couture, you know, is a high density solid from Michael Miller, and it just sews beautifully. So we're having a blast doing this project. Most of the months, we created 2 blocks from each design, or from each month, I should say. This month, we're creating 4, and like I said, you'll have your pattern in front of you, and it talks about in your cutting information all that you need to do. So you don't need to multiply this out. All of the information will tell you exactly what you need to cut to create 4 blocks for month number 9. And following, I'm just gonna, like I said, every month, I just follow the instructions and just kind of help walk you through it, give you the video instructions tutorial. So we're gonna start by building a few of our strip set rows. So we have our solid blue combined with our solid white, or our background color. And then in the instructions, we refer to this as the print. This is the fairy frost blue, and that's sandwiched between a couple of narrow strips as well. So your pattern did call for, like I said, several strips, and you're just going to go ahead and put these together. And I like to press these in towards the print side whenever I can, helping kind of mask away the white and just make everything sew together very nicely. For the solids combination, you have a skinny blue and a wider white strip. You're going to go ahead and sew those together, and everything is done with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The strips I've created, I've already started to use over here in these awesome patchwork corners, these cornerstones with the kind of like a 9 patch, but we're going to build it a little different. So I've already got my strip started. So I'm just going to start our video instructions today by cleaning up a little bit of this. Let's just set that aside now, and we're going to go ahead and get back into these, and we're going to need to make twice as many of our solids as we do of our prints. So we're going to need basically 8 per block. So I'm going to go ahead and start slicing those right now. One of my tricks I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and use this horizontal line as well as the vertical line to make sure that my pieces stay accurate. And then we'll need 4 of these per block as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those down. The unit measurement is the same for the subcut as was before there. So okay, we just need now 1, 2, and again, looking at both of the horizontal and vertical lines for accuracy, 3, and 4. Okay, so we can set that aside. We're ready to rock and roll here. What we're going to do is we're going to create what looks to be a 9 patch assembled just like that. And you most certainly can go ahead and chain piece these if you want. Speaking of piecing, let's make sure that iron's nice and hot when we come off of the machine. So if you wanted to, you could just go ahead and pre-organize each of your units to be. And then head on over to your sewing machine one at a time. And one of the reasons we were pressing away from the dark fabric into the light is so we can now nest those little seams together. And that just helps with a little bit of accuracy as well. Grab another set from another unit. Once you have the 4 pieces chained together, I'm just going to use the little cutter on my sewing machine to sever those threads. But I am going to make sure we press all of these pieces out before I start to sew the next. So I'm going to press away from my middle where my fairy frost was, because there's one less seam that way. So put your fairy frost down on your ironing surface, press away. And now we're just going to go ahead and attach the last piece, but make sure you're paying attention. You want to make sure it looks technically like a checkerboard or a diagonal there. So just make sure you slow down enough to get the pieces in the correct orientation before you get started. And go ahead and start to chain piece those back on as well, nesting up the seams this side. And if you can, keep the 2 pieces on your feed dogs, the 1 piece up in the air, because that just helps everything sew together just a little bit more successfully. Same routine once you have the other sides of our corners put together. Go ahead and cut those apart. Let's come back over and press these one last time. Again, trying to press away from that center fairy frost. And I didn't find the need to trim these down. The way this construction is based off of strip piecing seems to be quite accurate. So we're just going to go ahead and set those aside for a little bit later. We need to build the center of our star out first with our center patch and our flying geese. So let me show you how to do those now. And for that magic flying geese, if you haven't seen this, this is a really super cool trick. We've used it a lot in this series of construction, and I'm starting to take it on for more and more of my own work as well. So I'm going to need my big square, and then I also have 4 of these solid blue squares, and you can see now that I've drawn a diagonal line across the back of each one of them. So we're going to start by matching up one of these right here on that outer perimeter corner. The second one's going to drop right here. And we're going to sew on either side of this line. I'm not as worried about the positioning of this one, or you could put a straight pin if you wanted to. I'm just going to pay attention to that first one as I bring it into the machine here first. And again, I'm using that as my guideline. So my 1/4 inch is on the outside of the drawn line. And now as I approach this second square, I just make sure nothing's shifted and I sew right on through it. Now while you're at the machine, just go ahead and cut your threads and rotate your block. We're going to go ahead and do a 1/4 inch on the other side again. Just using the foot along that drawn line to give ourselves our seam allowance we need. Really, really easy. And when we're done, this is actually going to yield 4 of the half square triangle, of the flying geese, what I'm trying to say. Now, use a ruler to protect your hand. We're just going to cut that drawn line open. So now we have 2 halves of the unit we were just creating. Next thing we got to do is iron, okay? And we're going to press now into the blue. Even though we want to press away from the white normally, I guess I am still doing it right, pressing into my darks. Making like a little raccoon bandit face or something like that. I think that's so fun looking. We're just going to do this to both sides before we can add on the next. And it'll be the same exact thing here. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to lay this square, checking my outer perimeter and watching that line run right through. Getting that set, looking at my outer perimeter, letting the line right through. And we're going to sew on both sides of this 1/4 inch too. So let's just go ahead, start down at that corner. Of course, you can chain piece these as well. But we are going to need to sew on the other side of that line. So just cut thread. Cut it apart so it doesn't make a mess. And now we can approach it from that other side with a little more confidence. Go ahead and trim them apart again using that drawn line as your guideline for cutting now. Back to your iron you go, and we're going to press these also into the blue. So that you end up with those cool little flying geese units just like that. Not a bad idea to take a moment and just kind of take off those dog ears. You don't necessarily need a ruler as long as you're being careful and not cutting your fingers off. You could cut your fingers off if you wanted to, but it's not in the instructions, and we're just following the instructions today. Oh, that so badly makes me want to do the old Martha Stewart Saturday Night Live, or Julia Child, Saturday Night Live routine. If you haven't seen that, it's an ancient one and well worth doing. And yes, one of these days I will have to do that for all of you as well. But right now, we've got block number 9 to make. So now, as you can see, we're building a star, right? So now I'm going to take my centerpiece and I'm just going to go ahead and fit these in, making sure that the blues are touching. That's the easiest way to say it. Just make sure the blues touch all the way around like this. So we're going to sew on 2 first, and then we're going to come back and add some cornerstones to those pieces. So I'm just going to fold this over, match up my corners. I have enough room here that I can rotate and add this down. Just don't get going so fast you forget to match up your blue sides. And then 1/4 inch, and try to drop that needle right in that cross right there if you can, and that'll help keep your points accurate. Now we're going to come on back over to the iron, and I'm going to press from my flying geese into my center square because I don't have any seams in that center square, and that's going to make life so much easier. Okay, now on the table we still have some of these little white squares left over, so I need to go ahead and put one on either side here and here to go ahead and build out the cornerstones. So we're going to do that real quick. Again, chain piecing is my best friend on this kind of style of work, so we can just keep the ball rolling, the snowball rolling there, the star. Now for these units, I'm going to remember to cut them apart. And now what we want to do is we want to press from the center into the white, basically. So center out, following the theory that there's no piecing that way in the solid squares, but also it's going to help us nest into the center block that we just put the other flying geese on. So every now and again we have to press to the light side to make sewing so much easier. line these up. Make sure the blue's still touching so you have a star forming there. And like I said, I'm just matching up those seams as they nest together so nicely. Again, looking for that little corner there where my seams met together. All the way through, and let's put on that other side. Blue to blue. So I told you this was going to be super easy construction, right? And it's turning out fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and try to press this away from, I'm going to press back into the center again if I can. This one, there's a lot of seams going a lot of different ways. So you might just kind of have to let the fabric win if possible. But either way, this is what we're going for our center of our awesome star block, okay? The star chain is actually the name of this one. Now what we want to do is we're going to use our leftover white rectangles we have. Those are going to fit in here just like that with the block. And just like we did with the flying geese, we also need to put in our cornerstones. Now the trick is that your blue, again, is facing into your blue. So that's the only thing we really need to do is pay attention, make sure the blue pieces of our super cool little 9-patch corners are lined up. So to make life easy, what I do is I actually go ahead and start by sewing on 2 of just the solid rectangles first. I'm going to go ahead and press these as well right now as they're coming off of the machine. Again, pressing away from the patchwork into the solid rectangle I just put on, making life easier for the iron. Now I'm going to go ahead and put these together. So the first thing I do is I just take one unit and I fold it over. And I just pay attention to that blue square here. I'm going to say that's technically on the top right now of the rectangle. So as I rotate this at the machine, all I'm going to do is make sure that my next blue square is going to touch at the bottom or the top. Excuse me. Whoa, I'm going too fast. Let's slow down. Blue square's down there, so I want to make sure the blue square touches down here as I'm at the machine, and that's why I'm doing them one at a time, so I can double check that work. Now I'm coming on over, we'll put that 1/4 inch seam allowance down on it. And now that I have all 4 of the corner blocks mounted, now I'm going to go ahead and come back in, pressing from the block into the rectangle. The block into the rectangle. As I drop it back onto my design, I want to make sure, again, those blues are facing in towards the center. Just like this, and now I'm going to go ahead and use that nested seam again to make sure everything lines up nice. So all we have to do is press it here and we are all set. I'm going to go ahead and press from the center out. The best that I can here, getting all of those seams organized, rearranged, making it look awesome. And there it is, super, super cool, right? And like I said, we do need to make 4 of these, but the instructions you have will cover all of the sizes needed, all of the yardage needed. And it's, like I said before, super fun, super easy. And I just want to thank Leila again for creating this awesome block of the month. Make sure you're supporting your local quilt shops. Let them know you're interested in the patch party. I'm sure they can still get it in. They may even be able to make kits for you if you want to be able to get all the awesome Michael Miller Cotton Couture and Fairy Frost in one location. And until next month when we do block number 10, it's super cool green when I'm excited. You know green's my favorite color. I will be putting out a bunch of other fantastic videos for all of you. So we'll see you next time right here at Making It Fun. Wow, you are still there. Thanks for sticking with me till the end of the video. I know, I get a little long-winded sometimes. But if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you check out a few of the other ones we've created. I think they're terrific. And of course, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the little bell to be notified. I don't want you to miss a moment of the fun. Stay safe and happy sewing.